Everyone, my name is Constable Danny McKinnon, Winnipeg Police Service Public Information Officer. Today we have one matter to release on, and along with me here is the Inspector of our Organized Crime Division, Elton Hall. He will be taking questions and presenting this release in a moment. So I'll just give a brief synopsis. This was regarding a drug search warrant and 2 arrests that were made. On October 12th, 2022, the Guns and Gangs Unit, with the assistance of the Tactical Support Team, seized over $6 million worth of drugs and arrested 2 men from Alberta at an apartment residence in the 800 block of Sterling Lyon Parkway. This is considered the largest methamphetamine seizure by the Guns and Gangs Unit to date. As a result of this investigation, there was over $6.3 million worth estimated street value of methamphetamine, and that's 63 kilograms worth, as you can see on the table there. 3.4 ounces of fentanyl, estimated street value $15,000. 6.6 ounces of cocaine, estimated street value of $13,000. And 2 liters of GHB, estimated street value of $4,000. Dennis BOBKO, 35, and Bryan ARNOLD, 47, both from Alberta, were charged with a number of drug trafficking offenses as well as possessing proceeds of crime. They were both detained in custody. And I'll now call up Inspector Hall.
Good morning, everybody. So the Guns and Gangs Unit receives federal funding and is aligned under our gang and gun suppression strategy of the Winnipeg Police Service Business Plan. The mandate of the unit is multifaceted, which includes enforcement, intervention, prevention, and education. The Guns and Gangs Unit is also tasked with firearms and drug enforcement. Police agencies across Western Canada have communicated that individuals involved in the trafficking of illicit drugs are attempting to establish drug cells in alternate cities and expand operations throughout Canada. As I reported previously, on November 20th of 2021, the Guns and Gangs Unit seized 22 kilograms of methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine from 2 individuals residing in Alberta. Both were arrested for trafficking and selling these drugs in Winnipeg. Between November of 2021 and October of 2022, the Guns and Gangs Unit has encountered several individuals from outside provinces attempting to conduct illicit drug activity and criminality in Winnipeg. The days before October the 10th of 2022, the Guns and Gangs Unit entered into an investigation in the 800 block of Sterling Lyon Way. The Guns and Gangs Unit and the Tactical Support Team subsequently executed a search warrant at Suite 312, 835 Sterling Lyon Way. A 47-year-old male and a 35-year-old male, both from Alberta, were located within the residence upon execution of the search warrant. As mentioned, 63 kilograms of methamphetamine was seized with an estimated street value of approximately $6.3 million. Approximately 3.4 ounces of fentanyl was seized with an estimated street value of $15,000. 6 ounces of cocaine and 2 liters of GHB was also seized. As well, within a residence was approximately $60,000 to $75,000 in Canadian currency. As mentioned, this is the biggest single methamphetamine seizure by the Guns and Gangs Unit and the Winnipeg Police Service to date. As I've mentioned in the past, methamphetamine is highly addictive and a dangerous drug which has plunged individuals and families into crisis and overburdened the medical system. Methamphetamine and fentanyl have caused a crisis in Winnipeg, and I ask anybody with information regarding the trafficking and selling of methamphetamine or fentanyl to call 986-6222 or Crime Stoppers at 786-TIPS. Finally, anybody who may have a family member or loved one requiring assistance can call or text the Manitoba Addictions Helpline at 1-855-662-6605 or visit the Manitoba Addictions website for further information. Thank you, and I can take some questions at this time.
So these operators from elsewhere moving into the city, are these part of these people, do you believe, are part of the organized crime network or are independent operators? How would they be that?
I would categorize them as a part of an organized crime network.
Would that at least these two, do you believe they're part of an Alberta network, or is it a wider network?
That's probably a wider network.
So it encompassing multiple provinces?
Yeah, this will be multi-jurisdictional throughout Canada.
I mean, in broad strokes, what did this investigation look like? I mean, how did investigators learn of this shipment being in Winnipeg?
Well, I don't have the intimate details, obviously, but as I mentioned in here, and that's why I said it, we've been in communication with a lot of agencies across Western Canada. There's been a lot of intelligence going back and forth about interprovincial trafficking and individuals from large drug networks moving drugs into the Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Western Ontario area. And they're trying to establish essentially drug networks or criminality in these cities. For whatever reason, they think they can do that and enter into the city and do it without any sort of issues involving police or the criminal element in Winnipeg. But Winnipeg's a fairly small city and everyone knows everyone through someone. So it's not too often that we don't hear about these shipments coming in, and we just do the best we can to try and intercept.
How are they coming in? Is this on the roads or?
This was through a vehicle, yeah, on the road.
I mean, considering that this is a fairly wide-reaching investigation, are police expecting more arrests tied to this?
Well, it's an ongoing investigation still, so there's potential for more arrests. Yeah.
And when you say it's the biggest size from to date, so it's from when?
So I want to be clear, it's the biggest single seizure. So if we do one warrant, execute one warrant, this is the most methamphetamine we've taken out of one warrant.
Mm-hmm.
We've had long-term projects. So for example, Project Phoenix, which we conducted last year, we had well over 100 kilos of a variety of drugs, but that was over a 8 or 9 month period. So this is the biggest single seizure we've had in the Guns and Gangs unit. The Guns and Gangs unit started in 2018 and 2019, so that's almost 5 years.
I mean, what's the ripple effect that a large seizure like this has on the city and on drug users? I mean, how would this be broken down?
Well, it's very multifaceted. I mean, from a criminal organization perspective, obviously this is $6 million of money not going back into organized crime, which they again buy drugs with or firearms and bring onto the streets here and create the problems we have in Winnipeg and some other urban centers. From a community standpoint or Winnipeg standpoint, this is a significant amount of methamphetamine. So this does provide some relief for the community. So individuals who may be involved in maybe suffering from issues of drug use. This might provide them an opportunity now to reevaluate the position they're in or try and get help. It creates a lot of relief for frontline individuals at hospitals. As I said before in a previous presser we had, I think methamphetamine and fentanyl users going to emergency rooms, they were up 7-fold since 2019, creating a lot of stress on nurses and doctors in emergency rooms. So this helps, this provides some relief. Obviously, from a first responder point of view, more or less firefighters and paramedics and police as well, provides a little bit of relief. You don't see the overdoses you might see generally at this time. And then from a policing perspective, when people use methamphetamine, it creates a lot of issues on the street, violence, crime. And so we should see a bit of a dip in that violence and crime right now as well.
So, 62 kilograms, how would this be broken down to the street level? Would this be parts of this kind of parceled out and sold?
Yeah, it really depends how they're going to do it. So I'm simply speculating here. They'll have their contacts within the city. They'll go to their contacts. These contacts will then distribute it to street level drug traffickers. It's broken down to the point. So meth is usually sold in point form. You can take 1 or 2 points and that high could last for people who don't use methamphetamine 6 to 10, 12 hours. And for people who use it a lot, maybe it's a shorter high, 2-3 hours. But meth it's about $10 a point right now, so it's very cheap and it's very easy to make. As you can see, there's a lot of it here.
A point being a tenth of a gram.
Yes. Yeah.
You might not know or might not say at this point, but where did this come from prior to Alberta?
Yeah, that's tough. Methamphetamine traditionally was coming from Mexico. Obviously, there's labs in the United States that produce a fair amount of methamphetamine, and I know we have labs in Canada. I'm just talking from experience, and I look at the quality of this methamphetamine. It's a little, there's a brown tinge to it. It's not perfectly clear. So, you know, if it was perfectly clear and it was well made, I would probably tell you, look, I'm pretty confident it's made in Mexico, but this could be made in Canada or the United States right now. So I don't have an exact answer, but it's one of the three areas.
GHB, I mean, I haven't heard a lot of seizures of GHB. I mean, is it being sold as a date rape drug, or is it being sold as you know, recreational drug?
Yeah, a little of both. So we don't seize a lot of it. I find it a little bizarre that with this drug network and what we're looking at here, there's GHB attached to it, but GHB is used in the bodybuilding world. People who use enhancements like steroids also use GHB. So maybe that's why it's here. It's, yeah, date rape, for lack of better. I don't have a political correct term for that, but it's used for that as well, as you said. So a little surprising to see that here. I'm not sure why it's a part of this whole seizure, but yeah, it's 2 liters of it.
For, you know, organized crime and drug dealers in the city, I mean, is there a void left? I mean, what are they going to do now with this amount off the street?
Well, I don't know the background of these individuals necessarily. I mean, is there a void? There's a void for a short period of time. Someone's going to fill in these 2 individuals' spot. We're going to see this trend happen again. You know, I've really asked the guns and gangs unit to get rid of, to stop with the, or not really get involved in marginalized policing. So what I mean by that is not really race per se, but that marginalized arrest where you're arresting somebody who has a small amount of drugs on them and then they're released 3 hours later. We're in here doing paperwork for the next, 10 or 12 hours. Those arrests are inefficient. They don't work. I've asked the guns and gangs unit to sort of reevaluate. We've pivoted into gun trafficking and seizing guns, but I want to see mid-level drug traffickers being arrested and targeted, and that's what we have here, and that's sort of the area I want to get into. It's these individuals who enter the city who don't even live here, causing a lot of mayhem and chaos for people in need. They're taking advantage of vulnerable people in the city who rely on these drugs. They're making a huge profit on it. So it's a significant arrest in that regard. But yeah, this is a very significant seizure. It's a large seizure. It's alarming that there's this much methamphetamine on the table in front of me. Hopefully we don't see this trend continue, but there is a lot of methamphetamine, not only on the streets in Winnipeg, but across Canada right now.
So the apartment that was in, it's 800 Sterling Lyon, that area has a bunch of luxury apartments, Airbnb, short-term rentals. Can you say more about the apartment where it was found?
I would just say at this point it was rented out to a third party, but everything you said is correct.
As in a third party to the 2 men arrested, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Any final questions?
I have questions but regarding the accidents yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know anything about those. No, okay.
We'll just,
Yeah, we can do that after.
Is there someone else that can talk about it?
well, you can send an email after the press conference, or I can talk to you privately on the side, but we're just going to stick to the seizure for this one. Any final seizure questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.